Welcome back to Captain's Commentaries. It's currently damp out, so I cannot be out plinking or doing the other things I'd like to be doing. So instead, I'm going to start a 3-video series in which I will pontificate about DMRs, Designated Marksman's Rifles. And you can definitely argue the use of that term. I'm using it because I feel it fits and because it makes it easier to have this conversation because it's a simple term to refer to. Today I'm going to be looking at what I am considering light DMRs. Next video, the video after this will be medium DMRs, and then the third one in the series will be the heavy DMRs. And I'll be mostly talking about the evolution of them and what we're seeing in our hobby now as compared to where it started and how I theorize we got there. So we start here with an OG Alpha Trooper, and I'm calling that a DMR because it's pump action, magazine fed, has a stock. It kind of fits that category, and it's light because there was a limit to how much power you could ever get out of one of these. They had reverse plungers. There were obviously attempts to mod them, power stocks, upgrade kits. This one does have an old orange ModWorks full kit inside it. It actually will get decent performance, but it's never going to break that 100, or at least this one certainly isn't going to break that 100 barrier, or at least not without a lot more tinkering than has currently been done to it. But it was still in my opinion, one of the best HVZ blasters that was ever created. Certainly the best at the time it came out, in my opinion. Then we get to the Elite Alpha Trooper, which was now direct plunger. You could get more out of it, and Orange ModWorks came out with even more kits for it. But again, there was a limit to what you could get out of it, and the large limitation was in the priming mechanism, because it had an internal priming rod that was offset, and there was just only so much spring weight that could take before it failed. And so this didn't end up becoming the standard for what I'm going to refer to as the medium DMRs. I think it stayed in light DMR, and I still use one to this day. This is the one that I take with me when I go to HVZs as my backup primary. If it starts raining and I don't want to take my FDL3 out for fear of it exploding, I bring an Elite Alpha Trooper with an Orange ModWorks kit in it, and it works fairly well. This one has started getting a little bit finicky, having some jams. I need to open it up and service it. It's overdue. But it was really quite nice. There was a gap for a while. Well, and mostly I think that's because people focused more on the medium and heavy DMRs than on the light ones. But along came Dart Zone, and they came out with the Nexus Pro. And I am going to argue, and I'm not going to argue this particularly heavily, but I'm going to argue that this falls into the category of light DMR. This was the cheap model, or the cheaper model. This was the can buy it in Walmart model. And it's got a lot more power than you were ever going to get out of one of these out of the box, but there were still limitations on what you could get out of it. Now, you could mod these and get some good numbers, decent numbers, but again, there's a limit just because of the general construction of it. It wasn't designed to be the super high-end blaster. Now, that's not to say, like I said, that you can't mod it, but there are better blasters that you can mod a lot easier and get a lot more power out of. So these, I think, were intended to fall into that light DMR category, and they're easy enough to get down low enough to use in HVZ. The spring can just be brought out easily, put on a different cap, put on a weaker spring, and you can get these down to HVZ numbers or public war numbers relatively easily, and then you will still have a fairly accurate pump action blaster that will work fairly well. The Striker is, as far as I've ever been able to tell, just a different color and a slightly different form factor with a vertical grip or a horizontal grip rather than a vertical grip, which I prefer the color of this one. I prefer the ergonomics of this one. What are you going to do? But in my opinion, this really is largely one of these. It lines up. It's about the same size. It's about the same form factor. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of the R&D that went into this came out of these. That they looked at, what kind of performance can we get out of a blaster in this form factor. They clearly put in a larger plunger tube and a heavier spring and better internals in general, and we're able to come up with something fairly impressive that they were able and willing to just put on the shelf at Walmart, as opposed to selling privately, like we will see with the medium DMRs, the heavier stuff. Now, there's lots of other blasters that you could obviously put in this category: Raiders, Mediators, all of those. These sat nicely on the table, and so that's why I went with them. But that's my take on the light DMR. For the more casual consumer, perhaps, or for lesser games, lower powered games, is where these are gonna shine and are gonna be the most useful. So let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do please understand I am not trying to force the term light DMR as a hobby standard. That's just the term I'm using in these videos to be able to express the concept that I'm trying to get across. This is not by any way a hobby standard. There may be a hobby standard that I'm just forgetting, but that's what I'm going on here. So please don't get into the pedantics of whether they're technically light DMRs or if they're actually this or actually that. The question is, what is your thought on the concept of the lesser but accurate blasters that can be used at things like HVZ and Public Wars? So there's my thought on the evolution of this. Next week, it's gonna get a lot more spicy because we're gonna be looking at the medium DMRs, where there's a lot more going on. So stay tuned for that next week. And thank you for watching.